There we go. I called Mark Zuckerberg and he fixed it for us, so we're all good now.
Well, now I can get my earbuds to work.
Good, because I'm gonna give you some notes on shot composition and audio quality.
So, funny story about that.
Yeah.
I need to bring that up, Tom. So, the biggest complaint. Hold on a second. Let me turn off the biggest complaint that we have on all this stuff is audio, right? Yeah. And you're a TV guy, you get it. Like, video is easy, audio is hard.
Yep.
So we go out and invest money this quarter in this fancy system, and I'll show it to you later. 2 big screen TVs, fancy cameras, all this stuff.
That's great.
Yeah. Right, it's great. The video quality is unbelievable. And so he goes, your headsets are back ordered, but I brought one of them for you to work with them today. And I put the headset on, and I'm like, I can still hear everything that's going on in the room. He goes, is that a problem? I'm like, well, that was what we talked about when we spec'd the system. And he's like, oh. So,
yeah. Well, A for effort. A for effort, yeah.
So anyway, Tom, welcome.
We have 4 whole viewers, so you want to get started?
That's all right, we'll get started. So thank you for joining us. Sorry that our friends at Instagram, Mark had a problem today. We're talking with Tom Rogan of Goodnow Farms Chocolate. I don't know what town you're in Massachusetts.
We are in Sudbury, Massachusetts. Zip code 01776.
www.goodnowfarms.com.
That's it.
And arguably you're one of the leaders in the bean to bar industry right now. Is that a fair
Arguably, yes. And do I sound okay to you, by the way? I'm getting a bit of feedback.
Yeah, it might be me. I don't know.
Okay. As long as I sound okay to you.
You sound good.
Great.
You know. But
I'm going to turn you down just to make sure it's not me. So, yeah, we've been around for 5 years. I started in late 2016, and we're all bean to bar, and we have been fortunate enough to win a lot of awards, which has been nice.
But you're not. But you don't have a culinary background. You don't have a chocolate background, really.
No.
You started somewhere else.
Yep.
Doing something else. Right.
Non-food related, yeah.
Non-food related.
An industry in which you can actually make money, yeah.
Oh, you can make. I don't know why I keep putting them in. I keep putting them in, hoping they're going to start to work.
Yeah, it'd be nice if they work. I think the feedback thing is echo from your big echoey room.
All right, let's see what I can do. Hold on. We're going on walkabout.
All right, look at this. Yeah. Hey, I set up this really cool thing with rubber bands for my phone. Never done this before, but it's working.
I need my face mask in case I end up somewhere that I'm not supposed to.
All right.
Okay, hold on.
The planning lab.
How's that? Any better?
That's much better, yeah.
All right, cool.
Yeah. Less echoey.
Okay, there we go. I have this nice background here.
Oh, that's fantastic. You made that yourself?
Okay. Yeah, I did not make that, actually. All right, so cool. So, sorry, everybody. Sorry, Tom. Dude, this is like the extent of my relationship. This is I think indicative of
whatever can go wrong. Yeah, pretty much.
Anyway, so you came over to chocolate, but you were telling me the other day that you and your wife sort of had been tinkering with chocolate for some reason.
Yeah, well, we came across I don't know if it's craft chocolate, but handmade chocolate in 2005, I think it was. We were in a furniture shop in Los Angeles where we lived. And this couple who owned it made their own chocolate. And we tried it. We're like, wow, this is incredible. It was the first time we tasted a non-mass market chocolate, really. And I became addicted. Monica actually started to like it because she was not a chocolate lover until we started doing this. She hated chocolate. But once she tasted, something closer to real chocolate, it was something we both became interested in. And then it was really because if LA had a decent mass transportation system, I probably wouldn't be doing chocolate today. Because the issue was to get to the place that sold the chocolate, it took like an hour and a half from where we were. So I would get there, and sometimes it'd be closed. Like, this is stupid. So I was like, if they can make it, then I can make it. So I started doing it as a hobby, and Monica and I really got into it. And
A little melange.
I don't know how far you want to go with the story.
Well, what were you? So in your house in LA, you got a little stone melange, and you're roasting beans in your oven and winnowing by hand, or you're buying nibs from somebody.
No, that was it. So I was buying beans. The first beans I bought from Amazon, and I just used roasted in the oven and winnowed with a hairdryer, and actually made the chocolate in a coffee grinder. Because before I had a melanger. So then obviously you graduate there's these melangers you can get. And once we started making that, we started sharing with people, and everybody we gave it to was like, wow, this is amazing. You should sell this. So that was over the course of many years. We started to learn more about how cacao is sourced and the issues with the supply chain and how farmers aren't being paid fairly for their cacao. And that got us interested, especially because a lot of the cacao comes from Central and South America, and Monica had spent a lot of time down there as fluent in Spanish. So we started going on trips to South America and Central America to meet with farmers. And those trips started after I was working in television for a long time, and I had my own production company, which was purchased.
Right, but quickly, I'm going to interrupt for a second. I mean, quickly, you said you don't have a food background, but a lot of what you did in TV was about food.
Yeah, we did a lot of food shows. So we knew a lot of chefs, and actually I'm a minority investor in Connie and Ted's on Santa Monica Boulevard. If anyone wants to go there and get some takeout, they're fantastic.
That's your plug, though.
There you go. That's all you got. I only get one. Yeah, so we did a lot of shows for Food Network. We loved working for food. We did a thing called Ace of Cakes is how we started with them. And then we did The Best Thing I Ever Ate, which was going to all these amazing restaurants, and celebrities and chefs would talk about the amazing food they had there. And then we won an Emmy Award for Best Thing I Ever Made, which was chefs making stuff. So, I'd had a connection to that world, but not, the difficult part, which is the making of the food. So we decided after I'd sold part of the company, it was a 5-year earnout, that we wanted to make chocolate full time because we wanted to do something after that. And we wanted to move back to the East Coast. We had young kids. And so that became a 5-year plan to come back here and to have our own chocolate factory.
But you guys from Massachusetts originally? Is that kind of home?
I'm originally from Western. I went to school here. Monica spent time here in summer. She spent summers on Cape Cod. So we definitely had an East. And she's from Baltimore, so we had East Coast connections. But
I did not have a Baltimore connection.
What?
I lived down that way for a while too. So
really? Yeah. No, she has a lot. She'll tell you. Which high school did you go to? That's usually the question.
Well, I grew up in Philadelphia, but
there you go.
I worked down in the anyway. Whatever. It doesn't matter. It's a long story.
So once we knew we wanted to do this, that's when we started making the trips down to Central and South America, finding farmers, finding great cacao. And then when we moved here in 2015, we took a year, and you and I talked a lot at that point, to build out our chocolate kitchen. And we started selling chocolate in late 2016.
I was doing the math in my head, so that's 5 years ago.
But yes, 5.
But so now you're sourcing beans from what countries?
We are only in South and Central America. So, in North America. So Mexico is technically North America. So Mexico, Nicaragua, Guatemala, up until recently Costa Rica, but that farmer just decided to stop doing cacao. He's selling his farm. If anybody is interested in buying a beautiful cacao farm in Cotobruz, Costa Rica, please email me. No joke.
It sounds like something you should do. Then you'd be completely vertically integrated.
We actually thought about it. We went down, we visited the farm. It's an amazing place. But it was just a matter of the logistics of going back and forth. And there's a lot of other challenges too. But that was the primary one. It's hard to get to the farm. So if anyone wants to take a 5-hour drive from San Jose, it's great. And then we expanded into South America, Ecuador, which we love, Peru, and now Colombia.
But you're working direct with farmers everywhere, right?
Yes, and just to be clear, like direct, some farmers, just to get the cacao up here, direct trade, there's no exact definition, but we work with the farmers directly, we negotiate the price with them, we pay them, in most cases directly. Some of them, a couple of them, will use a larger importer to bring the beans up. So we'll pay the importer, and then but the price is negotiated with the farmer. But sometimes we send it air freight, like with Colombia, they put it on a plane. With Mexico, they put it on a truck. So it's about as direct as you can get with cacao.
What's your favorite place to visit of that assortment of fine nations.
It's interesting. They all have. I mean, they're all so fascinating. You know, we've loved our trips to every place. We would probably next place we go when all this is over is probably going to be Ecuador, just because it's on the farm is right on the coast. It's beautiful, and we've also wanted to go to the Galapagos at some point with our kids. So that's a nice little jumping off point. But every country we've been to has been so incredibly amazing. And I will say I've loved my time in Nicaragua. We have the farm we work with is right outside a little town called Matagalpa. And I've been there a couple times by myself, which is great because I can brush up on my Spanish. But I remember like I'd walk around the town and like people would honk and wave at me because they knew me. I was like, this is really cool. You know, you're hanging out in a place people know you in a different country. So, but they're so friendly, so welcome, so beautiful. I mean, every country we've been to has been awesome.
Yeah, I got the pleasure of going to one. Thanks for bumming me out and reminding me about Ecuador, because when all this went down, I was scheduled to go to Ecuador on a cacao trip with our friends at Valrhona.
Yeah.
Well, Republica, sorry. And
Yeah.
then, but yeah, I was in Nicaragua 2 or 3 years ago and was blown away by how wonderful Nicaragua really was. I mean, from the people to the climate to the different climates, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Nicaragua has all these microclimates, you know, and, you know, how great, Managua was great. I mean,
yeah, no, even Managua, we loved hanging out in Managua too. It was a lot of fun. We actually went to a cacao conference in Managua, which was amazing because all the farmers from around the country came in.
Somebody's encouraging us to come to El Salvador, by the way. I just saw come to El Salvador.
I would love to go to El Salvador. Monica and I have talked about it because there's great cacao in El Salvador and Honduras. But whoever that person is should email me. Like, we should talk about it because our concern is safety. I mean, we haven't looked into it recently, and you know, like most foreigners, we're probably overblowing the safety issue. But you know, a friend of ours, the wife of one of our cacao producers is from El Salvador, and she was like, "Don't go." So, but we're open to it because we would love to go. I'd love to go to El Salvador. Love to go to Honduras. Love to go to Venezuela. I mean, there's so many places I'd love to go to that have great.
I've been to Venezuela.
Oh, really? Yes. How was that?
20 years ago, it was okay. I don't know if I'd go today. I mean,
Things have changed a bit. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that's. I mean, in my myopic American view, right? I mean, there's a lot of perception. It's interesting because the person that invited us to El Salvador just said safety is all relative, and
Right. Sean.
you know, like we were talking before, I grew up in Philadelphia, and I don't think I'd wander through some of the places in Philadelphia that I used to wander through.
Yeah,
And they haven't
I was
changed.
held up at gunpoint in Boston. I mean,
Right.
You know, so yeah.
You know, and I think it's a matter of perspective, and I think, but you know, and that's my comment about, you know, Nicaragua, and somebody's now commenting about Colombia. I've been to Colombia too, and you know, Bogota is a big city that has big city problems, right? But the moment we got out of Bogota, it was a totally different. The same thing in Caracas and Venezuela. Like, the people were inviting us into their homes and outside the plantation when we were in Venezuela, right? And you know, but back to your point, you were talking earlier about paying people fairly and compensating people appropriately. You know, that's where the rubber hits the road, right? I mean, that's where you're able to do that to a certain degree.
Yeah, because you understand when you're there, you understand, you talk to the farmers, you look at the books, you understand the circumstances on the ground, you can get a feeling for what they need. And, you know, we've been lucky enough that we've been able to, in some cases, like with our Colombia cacao, we were the first one to go down there and work with them to really dial in their fermentation and drying. They've been working with Cacao Services, so they had, you know, Dan O'Doherty got them on the right track. Just a matter of fine tuning to taste, and we kind of finalized that. And part of that was figuring out what is a fair, like what will the market bear, not just for us to pay, but for other people to pay, and what do they need to be able to make it cost effective for them. So being able to work with farmers in that way and really understand, where the money's going and what they're doing with it, and also being able to invest in communities or farms, depending on the circumstance. That's really important.
So that's the beginning of the story, right? I mean, I mean, obviously we have to have product to do something with.
Right.
But so all that ends up in Massachusetts, and now you've got to actually, it doesn't matter how good the cacao is. You still got to make good chocolate with it, right? You're back. You were getting a phone call? Like, you can't, like, you know, was it somebody important? Was it your mom? I mean,
How do I do? I can't just decline. Can I tell my phone don't take calls? I guess I could put on.
Yeah, you put on do not disturb. We'll add that to the directions. We'll add that to the directions about how to do this here.
Come on, I'm not going to do that again. So anyway.
So anyway, what I was saying was that
Yeah.
you can have the best cacao in the world. It could be perfectly fermented, and it could be all the great origin and all this stuff. And then you got to do something with it. And if what you do with it is not done well, you end up with garbage. So you guys have gotten really good at making chocolate too. In addition to sourcing well and sourcing quality beans and all that good stuff, you guys are making good stuff. At least that's what the award shows say.
Yes, the awards people say it, so it must be true. Yeah, I mean, it took us a long time to figure out how to make good chocolate. You know, you can make chocolate, and then it's a matter of how do you really make a bean sing, bring out those individual flavors, and know enough to understand how to work with each bean to make it specific to that flavor. Sorry, I'm just, okay. So yeah, I mean, we took a lot of time, and the other part of it is that you can spend all the time in the world making chocolate in your house with a small tabletop stone melange, but once you get to 30-pound drum roasters and 100-pound grinders, like that process is very different. So even once we scaled up, we had to reinvent everything to make sure that we were getting the right flavors. And there's also a lot more control you have over various aspects of the process once you've got that equipment. So we were able to play with that more too, to really highlight flavor.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, so I mean, obviously we sell equipment, right? And that's full disclosure. That's how Tom and I know each other. Tom has some sell-me equipment in his factory. And honest, full disclosure again, we worked through some challenges because you're making artisan chocolate, which works a little differently than stuff you're going to get from Cargill.
Right.
Is that fair?
Yes, I would like to think so.
The controls are different, not the controls on equipment, but the controls of the process are different, and you're looking for different things like we've talked about than Cargill's looking for. Yeah. And so Tom and I got to know each other really well through a challenge. Fair?
A few challenges.
Yeah, I mean, fair. But I think, since then, Tomic has through Sell-Me is selling bean-to-bar equipment in addition to tempers. And, we're trying to learn as much as we can too, because we, in theory, should be pretty good at making chocolate as well. And we had somebody here a couple of weeks ago, and all we talked about was like moisture content, right? That's all we talked about, right? Where the bean-to-bar maker usually is concerned about origin, roasting, and winnowing, right? And how those three things contribute to viscosity, right? And this guy, for 2 days, all we talked about was moisture content and what a difference that makes. And that doesn't seem like, 2% to 3% is significant. 2% to 1% is awesome, right? And where you're talking about taking equipment from your kitchen counter and ramping it up, those things have to change, right? I mean, yeah. You know more than I do.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm understanding your question, there's so many different aspects to it, from moisture content and how that's going to affect your roast, to obviously how it affects viscosity, the origin of the bean that we get. Each bean has its own cocoa butter amount, and also its own type of cocoa butter. Cocoa butter from a bean that is close to the equator is going to be different than cocoa butter and a bean that's farther away. So, how that reacts, again, in terms of viscosity, your temperatures, all that is, you have to really get a feel for the beans. And the more you work with them, it's why we like our beans. We love experiments and trying those out. It's also nice. It's nice to go back to a bean that we've used for years, because its quirks. So you know exactly what to set for the tempering machine, and exactly how to tweak it for the roast, and it's just nice to work with something familiar. But the fun is too the challenge of working with new beans. Last year we started doing limited release bars, because we just wanted to. We come across all this amazing cacao, and we wanted to be able to release it in small batches. So we started doing that, which is nice to play with.
Yeah, but I was using moisture content as sort of an example, and I don't know that there was a question in there, to be honest with you. Like, but I think that
Andy Cohen, you're not.
I never claimed to be, Tom. You mean, so you're not going to syndicate this for me? No. I think moisture content is one of those categories, right? That I know that you spend a lot of time on the minutia of those little nuggets of whatever it is, whether it's moisture content or true temper, or you referenced fermentation earlier.
Yeah.
Right? Where, again, I think I know you. Like, you're doing your best to control each of those points of success or failure.
Yes.
To build a better product. So, I mean, you kind of shrugged when I said award-winning, but I think my opinion about your chocolate is that you are award-winning because you are trying to control all those points of success.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's kind of key with chocolate, because there's so many variables all along the way. And people think, with other food products, if you buy a Macintosh apple, it's a Macintosh apple. It tastes like a Macintosh apple. So people think, oh, I buy a porcelana cacao bean, it's going to taste the same. That's what it is. But what it comes down to, the way that the way that the whole process works, and even with cacao genetics, you can get the same beans, but every year they're going to be harvested from different trees at a different time. They'll be fermented with different beans at a different time. The ambient temperature and moisture is going to be different. The amount of time they're dried for and the amount of sun they get is different. Like, everything's different. So it's trying to control those variables as much as we can. So that's one of the reasons we go down to the places that we get our cacao from, because we can say, hey, we want you to take the beans from these farms or this particular location. That way we're always getting as close to the same genetic varieties as possible. And then it's fermented and dried, usually in most cases, 50-50, a custom fermentation and drying protocol that we've developed with the farmer to get the flavors we want. So that helps to narrow it down greatly. Otherwise, if you're just buying a bean from any given producer, depending on the producer, some are much more consistent. You could be getting wildly different flavors, wildly different genetic types, everything. So that's going to affect how your bean tastes and how you treat it in the process. But yeah, I do. We spend a lot of time. I spend a lot of time reading a lot of books about cacao. I should have had those books at the tip of my tongue. There's a very well-known author who's written a number of books on cacao, and you can get really deep into the weeds on those details, the chemistry of it, all the different factors. And I think it's good to know that or have it as a foundation. But then at a certain point, you kind of just got to let it go. And at the end of the day, what you're really controlling as a chocolate maker is what you had mentioned, which is, the roast, the conch. There's certain things you can really make a difference with.
Right. I mean, they all matter. I mean, and I think the true artisan, no matter the craft, right, and has a great understanding of the stuff you're talking about. Like, and we may not use it every day. Right, like but it's there as reference, and it's there to help us be better at what we do.
Yeah.
Right. I just saw a name pop up on the screen, and it's a very well-known chef who now owns the chocolate business. And I think I know a project they're working right now, and like in my head, the only way he can do that project is because he's really good at this other stuff on the other side. right? Like if you don't know the stuff over here, you can't get over here.
Yeah.
And I think that what you're talking about is, and it may be missed in some ways in your channel by some people, not everybody, but by some, is that you can get really deep in the weeds really fast on cacao and chocolate making. Like there are people that spend their whole life talking about crystallizing structures of form 6 lipids in in cocoa butter. I mean, it's like, you know, they've written hundreds of papers on it, and that's like their thing. Like, which, cool, we need those people.
Right.
I'm not reading the most recent journal article every time it comes out.
Right. You know, and that's one of the things that I think you really hit on, sort of what makes a good chocolate maker is having that basis of knowledge, but then being able to, since you have that, you can apply it in various points, and also you sort of have to throw it out the window at a certain point. Like you mentioned cocoa butter, and you know, I can know exactly what kind of cocoa butter I have with these different beans, but when I'm in my tempering machine and the thing's just not freaking tempering, you know, then I'm using my experience, my knowledge, saying what factor am I going to change now, and how are we going to do this? So it's hands-on. I mean, the more you do, the more you get. I hate to use this phrase, it's so cliche, but it's somewhat as much art as science.
Well, I was going to say that, like, my instructor in culinary school, when he was talking about chocolate tempering, right, because, you know, when I started, and we're going to get back to this question, so books you recommend. When I started in pastry, chocolate was totally black magic, right? That we didn't know why things were going on, and then he went in this 45-minute lecture about why cocoa does its thing and crystallizes, and what I've discovered at some point, then you go back to the black magic, right? You just kind of have to, like, why does it work? Because I know today it's warmer in here and it's colder outside, and like I got to do this, right? Versus, you know, I'm calculating the temperature and I'm doing all that stuff. Not that that's not important, but I think there's a balance, like you said. There's an art and there's a science. Yeah,
it's important to know the science, but at the same time, you have to make allowances. Like there are times I'll resort to flattery. I'll be like, "You're the best tempering machine ever. You're doing a wonderful job."
Light a candle. You need like to have a whole shrine to Theobroma Cacao.
No, we do. We say, don't talk badly about the Selmy when you're near it. Don't let it hear you. So yeah, exactly. There's a lot of positive reinforcement going on.
Like hold up.
Although we do the same thing with our cocoa butter. There's a lot of things we do that with, because you know, you never know we'll do anything to try to make it work. And there's so many different things that can go wrong in the process. That is one thing that we have definitely learned with chocolate making, is on any given day, usually something's going wrong, and you have to figure out how to make it work.
Yeah, I alluded to it before, but I was in a meeting when I worked for a Swiss company for a while. I'm in this giant conference room in a chocolate factory outside of Zurich, and the conversation's going on in Swiss German. Actually, it's going on in High German probably, and I'm kind of like, they're translating like every fifth sentence, and the head of innovation suddenly looks up and in English goes, "It is very difficult to make very good chocolate with very good beans. It is impossible to make very good chocolate with bad beans." And all he was trying to say was that everything matters.
Yeah.
I mean, every step along the way matters, from the terroir of the cacao and the origin and the genetics through to your molding. Yeah. Like it all matters.
It all matters. And people tend to gravitate toward genetics as being the most important thing with chocolate for some reason. Like you'll see on bars, it's a Forastero or a Criollo or whatever it is, a Melanado. And we deliberately don't do that, because there are so many other factors that have such a big impact on what that final product is, that, you know, we feel like people aren't deliberately misleading anybody, but it's just like that to us doesn't reflect the flavors you're going to get generally. So
I don't think
try to keep it as a holistic process.
I don't think, because you tell me that bar is from Ecuador, really tells you much about it either. Like, I don't mean to dismiss that there aren't better growing regions in the world, but if that well-grown Ecuadorian bean ferments for 12 hours, I don't care.
Right.
I don't care.
Yeah.
I mean, or if it gets moldy on the way to your factory and you use it. Not that you would, Tom. That was not, don't take that as a dig.
Just throw those moldy, nobody's going to notice. That's right. I just got distracted because my wife just joined. So, hi, Monica. Nice. Good to see you.
I haven't seen Monica since we shared an Uber in Seattle.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Did you not know that she and I shared an Uber?
In the before times. She kept that from me. No, we're going to be talking about that once this is done.
I wasn't alone, if it makes you feel better.
Yeah, I got to avoid Seattle. I didn't have to go to Seattle that year, which was kind of nice. We were really busy. So, yeah. But I would, at this point, I'd like to go anywhere. So we're looking forward to, at some point next, oh, it's my son who joined, actually. Okay. So my 8-year-old son's here. So, and now he's here in the room. Great. Hey, bud.
We're watching you.
Oh, good. I'm glad you guys are watching. So they've, Tar, my son, has joined us down in Nicaragua. We went and we harvested pods and cracked them open and did the whole thing, and it was delicious.
It's a family affair.
It's a nice thing. One of the reasons we did this is because we wanted to have this be an experience for our whole family. So it's been nice, and the kids are involved. They love doing not working in the factory, but being able to go to the factory, show it off to their friends. Tar's making a video for his 3rd grade teacher about the whole process. So that's been really cool to see them connect with that.
Do you get to go to every science class like I do? Could you come and do a presentation on? Sure. And
yeah, Monica's done that. She did a whole cacao tasting thing. She did a great job. The kids loved it. They made stuff. But,
there's some geography. There's some science. There's some economics involved every time I give a presentation. And the teachers always say, "This is great," and the kids are like, "Can we just?" Kids
are like, "Give me the chocolate."
Right. When are you putting chocolate in my hand? That's all I want to know.
Yeah, and I will say we've given the kids chocolate. 2nd graders in dark chocolate. Half of them are like, "This is great." The other half are like, "Can I spit this out now?"
Yeah.
So,
Dad, tell your kids they should get the white chocolate bar we made.
Oh yeah. So we're going to talk about that later. So Tari's favorite bar is our new bar. We're going to talk about later.
Cool. So this is a great question. You said I don't ask good questions. What is the scariest investment you've made in the cacao experience?
Scariest investment? Well, probably would be the initial investment we made when we bought all the equipment for the factory. So, that was a lot of money up front, knowing that you're anticipating you're going to be successful and you're going to amortize that over X number of years. But it's still, it's a big capital investment, to get the stuff you need for making chocolate of this scale. Gets, you're in the 6 figures. So that was expensive.
I've also heard that the first time you hand the stack of cash to that farmer you've never worked with, and you trust that those beans are going to get delivered to your plant 3 weeks later, it can be kind of scary too.
I'll say I think we've been lucky in that regard because we've known our farmers so well. And actually, the other strange thing is most of them take payment after we get the beans. So yeah.
The most odd thing about parents, money.
Let me finish that. So yeah, in that case, but obviously everybody works differently. But we've been lucky enough that it's been something where we've known everyone, so much. It hasn't been something we've worried about.
Got it. So in a different direction, I know you love all your farms. I know you love all your beans. I know of all the product you make, but favorite bar you've made?
Favorite bar? That's obviously a tough one. So I'd say for single origin, it's kind of split between El Carmen, which was the first bean we came across in Nicaragua, and which has probably won fewer awards than any other bars. But I love it. And I also love working with it. It's so easy to work with. But the Esmeraldas is a pretty amazing bean. That's a unique bean in that the Salazar family has their own farm. It's large enough they can ferment and dry it on their own. They handpicked the 3 different clonal varieties they planted on the farm, so they know exactly what they're harvesting and how to ferment those particular genetics. and they built a state-of-the-art fermentation and drying facility that gives them complete control over the process. So the bean, it's a great bean. It's a national, clonal variety, 3 of them. And so it's a great bean to start with, but then they do great work with it. It's always consistent, and the flavor is just so intense, like a deep berry jam, like I liken it to like a Cabernet grape. So I can just sit there and eat that bar forever. And then the brown butter bar that we just came out with, like that's another bar that I will just scarf down the whole bar in one sitting. It's just so rich and creamy. I love butter in general, but yeah, it's hard. The whiskey bar is amazing too. I love whiskey, so.
If you're nothing else, Tom, you're a passionate fellow.
Yes, I would say passion is certainly, that's my middle name, is Passion.
But I think you have to. I mean, you're talking about a lot of steps, and you're talking about a lot of different. You're doing a lot of things, right? Like brown butter doesn't just happen.
Right.
Right. I mean, there's. We can talk about the science about why butter tastes better that way, but it kind of doesn't matter.
Right.
I mean, other than the caramelization of milk solid. Anyway, sorry, I can't help it.
Maillard, yeah.
Right. That fancy reaction.
Yes,
right?
there you go, yeah.
And augmenting that probably with your roasting.
Yeah.
Right? Like you've got to do roasting differently to really bring out those flavors. But I'm struck today just by the minutia.
Yeah.
Like, and minutia kind of gets a bad rap. Like
Yep.
the term minutia gets a bad rap, but I think the details. Like I'm struck by the details.
Yeah, you got to pay attention to so many details. Like even when we were doing the brown bar, anytime we do a bar that has a flavor, we go through our whole list of origins. So we pair that with every origin to see what's the best pairing. And you can kind of, not everyone, because you can kind of get a sense when you do it. Like I knew the brown butter wasn't going to pair well with certain origins, so I just had a feeling they weren't based on what I knew about them. So the fun thing is that it's, to go back to passion, like it's passion about flavor and interesting flavor combinations, unique flavor combinations. So, we typically will not just add something on the back of a bar because we just feel like there's so many more interesting ways to do those flavors, the way they meld together when you put them in the grinders, when you put them in the celmi, and or you add them in some other way, like steeping the nibs in the whiskey and the rum, like that gives you these incredibly complex flavors and how that melds with the cacao. So it's just a passion for like finding new interesting things and drawing out new flavors that you haven't had before.
Yeah, and I think that what's interesting is that we're coming up on like a year of doing this program, right? So I've talked to honestly like 45 people in the last year, ranging from straight confectioners through to bean to bar manufacturers and some other people in between. And those are kind of like things that I think about on the confection side. Mm-hmm. Like, how do you create flavor with, fat and chocolate and fruit, and what am I going to do here? And I think that it's not a way of thinking that a lot of the bean to bar folks, at least in North America, are thinking about their chocolate. There's some. I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't want to dismiss people that are doing that, right. But it's another level that you don't necessarily need to add 2 pounds of cream, a quarter of a pound of butter, and like raspberry puree to get a flavor. Right. And I think that's kind of cool, right? I mean, I think that's one of the cool things that's happening in our chocolate, throughout, the world. But I mean, that's a new invention in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think the subtlety and also finding flavors that are occurring naturally, as opposed to, I can't tell you how many emails I get from people like, hey, we've got all these different, flavors. You can just, buy them in bulk and add them to your chocolate. And, we have no interest in doing that because those are flavors anybody can use, and we've tasted them before. And, for the most part, they're very simplistic, and we love the idea. Like we're working now with a single origin spice maker out of Brooklyn called Burlap and Barrel, which, if you don't know them, go to their website now and get some spices and start cooking with them, because they do a lot of the same stuff that we do. They do single origin. They go to the origins. They find unique spices. They work directly with the farmers. They do direct trade, and they have interesting spices nobody's really had before. So we're working with them. We did a black lime bar, which is this really cool process where in Guatemala these are just regular limes, and then they leave them out in the sun to dry, and they put them in plastic to ferment, and they dry them again. And you get this really interesting, complex flavor out of that. And adding that to the Guatemalan cacao which is also a fruity cacao, was just an amazing flavor experience. So that's the kind of stuff that really lights a fire under this. Anybody can, add a flavoring, but it's about matching those flavors and having all these subtleties that we find to be interesting.
Yeah, I did a tasting one time that we were tasting chocolate and pairing, and the person I did it with were like, let's totally like throw away the rules about chocolate tasting, right? And so the people at this tasting were given a bag that had grapefruit rinds in it, right? And so you got the aroma and the chocolate paired, and there were grapefruit tones, and you were able to sort of find that. And one of them was paired with chipotle chips, because they're salty and lime, and the chocolate had that lime aroma, but it needed the salt. You know what I mean? Like it needed that little thing. And I think when we start to, like what you're talking about, when we find these new ways and these new flavors, I live in Buffalo. Milk chocolate is orange flavored. How many, 6 drops of orange flavoring to every pound, or whatever the number is. And that's not to disrespect what people are doing, but it's just like, okay, you're right. Everybody's doing that, right? And maybe this orange flavor is a little different than this orange flavor, but they're fundamentally the same product, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's also just incumbent upon craft chocolate makers. I mean, we're doing something that is new and different with chocolate, and to continue to push that, because you can get something in a craft chocolate that you can't get in a mass market chocolate. And how are you able to add even more value to that? And that's part of it. I think the reason it draws people, a lot of chocolate makers, to the industry, because you can be creative that way. So you've got a lot of people who are doing, it's not just us, there's a lot of great chocolate makers out there, Fruition and Quantu, and all these guys who are doing, I shouldn't say guys, I'm trying to stop with the guys thing. All these people who are doing this incredible stuff, and it's just inspiring other people to do even more, which is great.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've got like 2 tempering units right now have craft chocolate in them from 2 different manufacturers. Yep. And it's cool how different they are.
Yeah.
Like, and one is from a very well-known, well-respected person from the industry, and there's one from somebody that's relatively new. And some of it you can see a little bit of the learning curve, right? But there's also, that doesn't mean that they both don't have value, right? Like there's one that they need to refine some processes a little more, and they're there, right? They're almost across the finish line with getting to a place that I think that product can be appreciated by a larger group of people. Yeah. And the other one is totally there, and they've been there for years, and like all they've done is gotten better. You know what I mean? But the color difference and the flavor difference, but like you said, they're both using cocoa beans. They're the same, right? Yeah,
same. And granted, there's probably some variation in those beans, but I would also encourage people to go and get the same bars made with the same beans from different makers and put them side by side, because they're all different. And you may like one more than the other, but just to get a sense for how much difference can be imparted in the exact beans that are being purchased and how those were fermented in the harvest year, and some of this information you may not know, but just the fact that you've got these vast differences in flavor and texture with the relatively same beans is what makes this so interesting.
Right. All right. So
somebody asked about cocoa butter. Yeah.
What? Somebody asked about cocoa butter, would you tell us more about the varietal cocoa butters? So you guys press your own butter.
We do. Yes.
Which is something not a lot of people are doing in your channel, right?
No, because most people are smarter than we are. It's a huge pain in the ass.
So you have this huge hot cocoa mix,
Yep.
challenge. But you see a difference in butter variety. I mean, you said it before, you referenced it before, but do you use different butters for different chocolates for different reasons, or is it that you just kind of know what to expect when you're using the chocolate from Nicaragua versus the chocolate from Mexico?
Well, it's always the same butter we use for the chocolate. So we'll press the Nicaragua butter, and then we'll add that into the Nicaragua chocolate. So we always match that because the flavors are it's the same flavor, and you can do the same thing with cocoa butter that you do with chocolate. Is you can press the different butters, put them side by side, and they taste completely different. So that's the main reason we do it. Is we found when we first started to scale, we weren't initially going to press cocoa butter, and then once we scaled up and we started tasting, I was like, this is not where we want it to be, and there's something missing, and that was the missing ingredient to really make the flavor sing, I thought. And I think that certainly a lot more makers are doing it now than were before. And I think you might find a trend of more of that, with the caveat being that it is time consuming and expensive to do and tricky. I mean, the reason I was initially a little late for this is because there was a problem with the cocoa butter press. Every day there's a problem with the cocoa butter press. So, you figure it out, but it's worth it because of the difference it makes in the quality, I think.
Got it. So full disclosure, I have no clue how we're doing on time because we started late, which
all right.
damn Zuckerberg. I think we have like 8 minutes left.
Okay.
Instagram cuts us off in an hour.
Okay.
So I have one last question that I ask everybody, and I promised you a plug time to plug whatever you wanted, other than the restaurant that you own in LA.
Where's the thing I'm plugging? Here it is. Okay. Yeah.
So here's my question. So look, I understand you don't have a food background, but we all eat. So there's got to be something early on that, like food. Like there's got to be some early food or chocolate memory that you have.
Well, so my mom always hates it when I bring this up, but when I was a kid, I wasn't allowed to have sugar. So I really didn't get much of anything that had sugar in it, including chocolate. So I don't know. I mean, there's really not anything. It wasn't like I was a big chocolate aficionado before all this started. Just there was something about that chocolate that we tasted, this idea that there was this whole new world out there,
right,
that I didn't understand, and yet it was something that was so prevalent, ubiquitous in our lives, and I had no idea that. I mean, it came from a fruit. Like, how could I have been eating this my whole life, off and on, and not have any idea about that? So, I don't know. It was just maybe the right time, the right place.
Right, and again, no insult in this question. You guys are traveling. You guys been out. I'll phrase it this way: you're going to a movie. It's date night. It's just the two of you. You get the big tub of popcorn, and you get like the vat of Diet Coke.
Yep.
I'm assuming you're a Diet Coke guy. You like that one?
Never had it. No, I hate it. I'm not a soda guy, but I get water. It's good.
Okay, so you get your bottle. You get the giant vat of popcorn. Of water, you got a water, and the deal comes with a candy bar from the movie candy case. What do you get?
Whoppers.
All right.
Right. Yep. And look, I'm always a little conflicted, but I will say we talk about the cacao supply chain, and the answer is not to just stop buying, because, these companies are they're buying cacao. It's a necessary thing from people, even though they're underpaying and there's lots of issues. Pressure needs to be put on them to improve the way they're sourcing. And that's a complicated thing. And we can all do the easy thing, say, I'm not buying Hershey anymore, whatever.
Yeah, that's going to be longer than the next 3 minutes that we have left.
No, I know. So there's a much bigger thing out there, but that's something we all should think about is, transparency and where our food is sourced from and how we can improve that sourcing.
All right. What are you plugging, Tom? This is your opportunity. Goodnowfarms.com.
Okay. All right. So today, in honor of this podcast, what is this?
I don't know. I don't know what it's called. We've taken to calling it a program, an IGTV program.
Okay. In honor of this compelling IGTV program, we launched a brand new bar today. It is our very first, speaking of cocoa butter, white chocolate bar, which I think is backwards because of the way that this camera works.
It is.
So, yes. So it's an Itawa Italakok.
Well, turn it the other way around. Like, turn it this way.
What?
Just spin it 90 degrees. Yeah, keep going. Yeah, one more. Perfect.
Oh, so it's upside down white chocolate. I never even thought
Chocolate,
about
but now
that.
chocolate is actually almost right.
Yeah, it is.
And then mile. Chocolate mile.
We have chocolate wild. So try our chocolate wild. All of our fresh pressed single origin cocoa butter, in this case from Ecuador. Like we said, one of our favorites. Amazing flavors. It's organic West milk, which is, we've tested a ton of milk powders, and just our organic sugar. But it's a really interesting bar. If you like white chocolate, definitely try it. If you've never had white chocolate, I think it's a very different white chocolate experience because, you know, no bulk deodorized cocoa butter. It's just this really flavorful cocoa butter that's adding a lot to it. So go on the website now. You can get it, check it out, and enjoy.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Hey, Tom, this has been great.
It's been a lot of fun.
And
Thanks for asking me.
I should have done it sooner. Sorry that your guest's like number 45.
See,
I got to figure it out. I don't know how many. This sort of started like in COVID, and it was supposed to be like a one-off kind of thing, talking to one guy, and like now it's the best part of my week.
Well, this is great. I mean, it's pretty nice to be on. I mean, there's only been what 45, 45 presidents. Are we on 46 now? So let's think about it, like it's like the president. It's an honor like the presidency. So,
And 2 people have been on twice. 2 people have pulled the Teddy Roosevelt.
well, that makes that just makes me feel crappy. So thanks.
No. It's well, we had a cancellation and like it was the last minute switch, and then the other one, it's a good friend, and like I was interested in helping.
It's your show. You can do whatever you want.
I can do whatever I want, and I don't think, and more importantly, I don't think I dropped the F-bomb today. So marketing was happy they don't have to edit it out. And you didn't curse at all, and you told me you would.
I used the A word. I used ASS. It was quick. You missed it. It still counts. Yeah. I give you the
Not in my house.
The FCC list. I have that.
Actually, we're only allowed to use the word apple in my house with my 12-year-old because she gets bent out of shape if we say So
I once got a 3-page, single-space, 3-column list from, I think it was WeTV, of here are all the words you can't use. So there were words in there I had never even heard of.
I used all those words when I appeared on Food Network Challenge and got bleeped the F out of me.
Perfect. Yeah, awesome. I'm sure. Yep, I'm sure Bob Tushman loved it. Hey, Bob, if you're watching. Anyway.
They love. You know what? I learned that, by the way. If you curse a lot, the bleeps are too many. They like one bleep in a sentence because then they know you're serious. But if you like drop 6 in a row, they can't use the whole sentence. And they're like,
can't. Yeah.
Cool, I got it.
Well, unless it's Real Housewives, in which case you're like, this is great. So.
All right. Hey, do me a favor. Hit the little X on your screen.
Okay.
And we'll see you later.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks, Tom.
I hope everybody had a good time watching. Hope you learned something. So thanks for having me, Brian. All right. Take care.
Peace.